Welcome to this class on the topic of organization structure. In fact, we're going to focus in on two types, flat and tall structures, and see what the advantages and disadvantages of each are. So let's start with organization structures. There are many definitions of organizational structures. For example, Robert Duncan defines the structure in the following terms. I'm not going to read this out to you. You can freeze the video and have a look at this, but you can see when you read it over that it's quite complex. There are many parts to it, and it's trying to incorporate a lot of ideas. So it gives the feeling that any attempt at defining the organization is complicated. If you look at a second definition, one by the Open University, and again you can freeze the video here and read over this, but as far as we're concerned it does show a very complex definition. So organizations are not simple things. They're emphasizing things like responsibilities, roles, procedures, regulations, fairly complex. The number of definitions reflects the type of organization and its purpose. Large corporations differ from small ones, different from small businesses. So it's reasonable to expect a large number of definitions. In fact, organizations not just reflect large and small businesses, but also the type of industry they're working in, and also perhaps the culture they're working in. So it is very, very complex. Now, in a seminal book by Huginski and Buchanan in 2001, the structure of an organization signals. It signals the expected behavior of the members. So the structure of the organization signals what we expect from the members of that organization. Clearly, the people who work in different organizations adopt almost the routine of that business or of that structure, and it reflects in them. Let's have a look at what the elements of the structure are, according to this view. Well, first of all, what it's concerned with? Well, it's concerned with the allocation of work within the organization. So structures are about allocating work, but they're also about how resources are coordinated efficiently. So that's what the structure is concerned with. What it involves is the allocation of tasks and responsibilities. It must reflect who does what and who's responsible for what. The clear specification of jobs and roles. Well, if you don't have a clear classification or specification of jobs and roles, then chaos ensues. Nobody knows exactly what their job is, and nobody knows exactly what their role is. So that's not clear. And it sets out the framework. It sets out the framework for the business, so it's easy to see the business. It's easy to understand the business because there is a structure. And it tries to do this in the most efficient way by designing the most efficient hierarchical structure. That's point number 4. It's just having a hierarchical structure is not good enough. It has to be an efficient one. It has to be one that does a specific job in the best possible way. And finally, it must look at the responsibility boundaries for each manager. Exactly what's each manager responsible for, what are their obligations in work, and in that way efficiency is fostered. In that way the business can control and can promote itself through internal efficiency. Now, the outcomes of the structure, well, clearly there's going to be a hierarchical chart, an organizational chart, which shows exactly how the business is structured. And without that, presumably management would not know how the business works. Well, you can't control something unless you know how it works effectively. There would be clear job descriptions and an efficient bureaucracy. We think of bureaucracy in a bad way. We think of it as unnecessary paperwork and inefficiency. But here we're thinking of bureaucracy in an administrative fashion which is efficient. So if you have an efficient structure, then information and communications should flow smoothly throughout the organization. And finally, number 4, there should be company rules and policies to make sure that every part of the structure knows what's required of it, what the manager's obligations are clearly spelled out, and violation of the rules or of the policies would presumably lead to some sort of disciplinary hearing. Now, as I said, the organisation can be classified as tall or flat. A flat organisation has got few layers. We have somebody at the top. I'll just put the cursor onto the screen. There we have somebody at the top, and then we have some management here controlling this bottom layer here, which are the workers and perhaps some charge hands or foremen or whatever. So it's a very flat organisation. The tall business, well, you have the CEO or the chairman over here, then you have the senior management, and you have another layer of management underneath, and finally you get to the shop floor where people make the products and carry out the tasks. So those are the two organizational designs. First of all, let's look at the flat one, the flat organization. Well, this structure, it has a small hierarchy, a small number of levels, in other words. Well, we saw that in the diagram. Communication tends to be efficient because there's few levels. It's easy to communicate. It's not very bureaucratic. No strict procedures and policies follow. It tends to be decentralized. The management at the bottom, if you like, the people on the shop floor have got quite a lot of responsibility for their work to ensure that the tasks are completed. As to how the tasks are completed efficiently on a day-to-day basis, there's quite a lot of freedom issued to those people to make sure the tasks are completed. So it's quite decentralized. There may be a possibility here, number 4, for workers to come together in networks to discuss areas of commonality, areas of interest relating to the business. And this could lead to new designs in production, or perhaps even a new design for a product, some variation. So it facilitates growth, and it facilitates involvement, worker involvement in the business. Now, the disadvantages of the flat organization, well, there are few opportunities for promotion, so morale may be low. Individual managers have wide responsibilities. There are many people reporting to them. Because it's a flat organization, there are few opportunities for promotion, as I said in point 1, because there's nowhere to go. There are no levels on the top, perhaps just 1 or 2 on top. And it's difficult to get up there without specialized managerial skills. And the managers have wide responsibility, number 2, for looking after wide parts of the business, perhaps many workers. In other words, managers have a large span of control. A large number of employees report to a manager, and this makes supervision difficult. So managers at the bottom level have a lot of work to do in flat organizations. They have a lot of responsibility. Now let's look at the tall structure. Well, fewer employees report to each manager, therefore there's a narrow span of control because there are so many managers and so many layers. We saw from the diagram there is a large number of levels, so the hierarchies more hierarchical, more levels as you go up. It's more centralized. Managers at the top of the hierarchy are the most powerful. So the CEO or the chairman of the business, the chairman of the board, these people have a lot of power within the business. And as you come down through the various layers, the various parts of the hierarchy, there is less power until finally you get to the bottom level where people don't have any power. Because there are more levels, there's more opportunities for promotion, so workers may be more engaged, they may be more interested in the business. It may be possible, because it's a more formal organization, there may be possible to have work and project groups designed by senior management with a view of maximizing efficiency. All sorts of possibilities here. It may be there may be efficiency subcommittees or groupings that can look at individual processes and make recommendations. There can be specialist departments looking at innovation or workflow issues or capital issues or whatever. So there's more possibility of thinking about the business. With a flat organization, everything was happening immediately, and there may not be time for reflection. But with a tall organization, there might be time for reflection, as we've got here. Now, the disadvantages of the tall organization, well, they tend to be bureaucratic, I suppose in the bad sense of the word. This means they have strict rules, procedures and reporting channels. So yeah, it's this is one which is controlled from the top down. Communications becomes complex and inefficient. It's difficult to find people, it's difficult to get out information, to communicate effectively with other people in the organization, and the business to some extent becomes almost fragmented. People in different departments perhaps are loyal to that department. They don't see the overall business. So there may be an issue of communications. Now let's look at small businesses. Well, small businesses tend to have flat structures. They tend to be flexible and have informal structures. They tend to be very similar to the diagram we had much earlier, in terms of some people at the bottom and very few layers of management and somebody at the top. They are not able to respond to environmental changes as quickly as flat structures. So small businesses sometimes perhaps have got a problem because they are so focused on what they're doing, they can't respond to environmental factors very quickly. That's a possibility. The opposite could be also argued, that because they're so close to the market, they do anticipate environmental changes faster and could make changes. So it depends. Crucially, it's not a given. This one, it could be argued two ways. But many people consider that small businesses, because they are so intense in what they're doing, they find it difficult to incorporate change or incorporate environmental change around them very quickly. But as I said, that depends on the business, it depends on the circumstances. It's controversial. It's not a fixed point. Now, large businesses, well, flat organizations, or flat organizational structures, I should say, are inefficient for large organizations. The span of control would be far too wide for managers to cope with. So large organizations must have this tall structure. It has to become tall to deal with the span of control problem. You can't have managers looking after inordinate numbers of people and trying to get tasks completed. It would be so inefficient. So a tall structure with many managers looking after small dedicated sections, that seems to be the order of the day. Tall structures have more divisions, more departments, and more rules, and all this emerges from the efficiency requirements of a large business. I think that's about it for looking at tall, flat organizations and looking at the relevance to small businesses and large businesses. Clearly the points need to be taken in context of a specific business, looking at particular types of production, looking at the market requirements of the business, and also looking at where it's located and looking at the wider environmental issues, and even looking internally through a SWOT analysis or a pest analysis. So these are some of the ideas that are kicked about when we consider flat and tall organizations. That's the main reference on the subject, one of the main references I should say. Excellent book, well worth getting your hands on. And that completes this session, so thank you for watching.